Good morning. Focus of today's video is to critique the video another content creator put out. His name's Dave. He likes to make videos about retirees reselling to augment their retirement income. It's a good topic. In it, he uses a few examples. I watch Dave's channel, and occasionally I get something out of it. But as often as not, I think his examples are sometimes a little too simplistic. The topics he brings up are great for wider discussion. In this one, he's specifically advising retirees on how selling something as simple as $20 items, a few a day, can augment your retirement income by $1,200. It's a good goal. But I don't think his examples actually support his thesis. So we're going to take a look at that. In the video, there are a couple of challenges. For one, I had to split the clips because I had to run some errands and go to town. But splitting your time, if you're going to be a retiree or reseller, is not all that uncommon. Retirees and resellers often have to split their focus and their time, so that's not at all uncommon. The other thing is that the road crew clearing power lines had a big chipper running when I returned from town. So I had to start and stop the clip because when they engaged that cutter, the noise level, even up here at the lake, which is several hundred feet away, it gets hard to record. So I advise you, or I suggest, that you do watch Dave's channel. Because if you like a basic overview of topics like reselling and selling on eBay and packing and shipping, he's got some good content. But he doesn't really go into depth. I'm not sure why, but he presents more of a rosy picture. If you follow his advice, things will go well. But I think not mentioning at least the complete story of fees and taxes and returns skews the information you're imparting to your viewers. If you're trying to convince them to start in this gig, you don't want them to start and then be disappointed with the results because they were surprised. They were blindsided by all these additional costs. Well, my experience in life is that you have to work a little harder than that. If you follow his advice and you dig deeper and you work harder and you expand your knowledge base, things will go well. I'm Brian. I'm at the lake. Please enjoy the video. Well, good morning. Out on the deck having my coffee as I start most days this time of year. Packages are out at the curb ready for the postal pickup, and I've been doing a little corresponding on eBay with some customers, and that'll be the topic of a future video dealing with information requests, offers, returns, complaints, that type of thing. That's a great topic all on its own. But today, while I'm having my coffee before I head into town, got a couple errands to run. Need to go down and do a small auction pickup at a commercial auction. Hardly worth the trip, except you got to keep the relationship going so that when you do want something extra or special, or you want them to hold it so you can sync up the pickup, they know your face. They know who you are. Not that this face has ever gotten me special entry into any of those after hours clubs, where the in crowd parties. Yeah. This is not a face made for that. I will probably be doing some photography this morning. One of my accounts has run out of drafts, and I'll need to boost it up. It's the account where we sell our own personal surplus. We keep that separate from the business inventory. And often, every 2 weeks when we're on that cycle to take consignments to have them sold, that's where the lots come from. I open the old bins from Seebeck and I pull out stuff that was in my workshop. Today it'll probably be large saw blades, like table saw blades, brush cutter blades, that type of thing. I did this sorting a couple weeks ago when I was making up one of those lots to go, and I set aside these blades because they were all new old stock sealed in the packs. Something a little smaller or a little larger, name brand, something that today has climbed to a terribly expensive price, I figured I would hold aside for a bit, run a comp, see what they're worth, put them up on eBay. Now, whether I call my buy-in price for these items zero, or whether I admit to myself that at some point I paid for these, but I may have got them at an auction the first time, because that's where I would get the excess parts and consumables. The saw blades are consumables. That's where I'd get them for my own workshop. I'd buy them at different auctions, put them in a drawer, and then when I needed one, I had one, and I would have only paid dollars for the group to begin with. Only these probably came from several groups. But this way, what do you call the recoup? You spent it for yourself, but you didn't use it. It's like I was watching a content creator yesterday, and he was talking about getting retirees to recognize the power in reselling. And it is. Reselling is a great side hustle for retirees. It's also a great part-time side hustle for people who aren't retired to work towards their retirement. Take some of that spare time you have in your retirement, learn a side hustle, make some extra money, improve your retirement quality of life. It's a great message. And I want to thank Dave for putting out that video that caused me to give this some thought, to give my view on the topic. But this example the gentleman used was about how he had sold a pair of Carhartt coveralls that were his. And he was explaining that he made a profit. And I always have to take such comments with a grain of salt, because at some point, depending on what he paid for them and where he got them, if he bought them new at a department store, he took a loss. If he bought them used at a garage sale, then whether or not he made a profit after selling them depends on what he paid and the fees that are involved in the transaction. If he bought them used at a garage sale rather than new old stock at a garage sale, then his margin was probably much smaller. But then the next question is, did he get his value from wearing them himself, right? So at what point do you zero out your buy-in cost? And we all mentally play this game before resellers. If I buy an auction lot that includes 20 objects, and I bought the lot because there were a couple in there that I figured would make me some profit. I wasn't even researching the rest of the 20, so I'm focused in, and I'm laser focused on the item. I bought a group like this the other day. It was some knives, and there were 2 knives in there, 3 knives in there in the group that I thought would make all my profit, and it didn't matter about the others. I didn't even look to see what brands they were. They were little things. I figured I'd just end up throwing them in a junk drawer lot and selling them off. What do you call the buy-in? What do you account for the buy-in value on all the other items you didn't care about? All right. If you're focused in on the PAL leather stacked handle hunting knife that might bring $80 or so if it was made in the USA, what value do you assign to those couple of pocket knives that they're going to get tossed out and go with a lot, or tossed into a junk bin and go with a lot? Do you call it zero? Do you divide the 6 knives by 6 and assign 1/6 of the value? Well, then your books are going to show that you lost money on 3 of those knives, but you made money on the entire project. So I normally don't bother. We log the purchase in as a unit. We don't normally pay attention to the items that go into junk lots, other than log the sale as a unit. But we don't break out the individual parts and pieces that make up a lot that we're selling ourselves at auction. And that's why using an example like that for the gentleman's channel can get a little bit confusing when he's trying to explain to new retirees or anyone starting in this game, how to account for profit. He was setting his goal at he wanted to make $1,200 more a month to help with his retirement income. And he was saying that if he sold enough $20 items, 3 a day, he'd make his $1,200. But that's not really accurate, and it kind of misleads new people who haven't experienced the eBay fees, options like promoted listing. When you come up wrong in your shipping and you've got to pony up the cost of shipping supplies, and he does charge shipping on top of his $20 item. So he is focused on the idea that calculated shipping will cover, with the surplus it charges, it will cover the cost or expense of shipping. But it doesn't always happen, and it's not always true if you miscalculate. One of his examples was that he had told calculated shipping software he was going to ship at 1 pound, but he put it in a box that was about 2-3 times larger than it needed to be. It came in at 1.5 pounds, which meant he paid for a 2 pound rate. So he wasn't making that little uptick on his shipping to pay the extra cost. And then, of course, he completely ignored the idea of taxes. But that's not a simple concept to explain to a new person either, if you're just getting into this game. Because how much you might have to pay for those $20 items you're selling depends on other income. What tax bracket are you in? And if I'm selling very few items, I may not reach that threshold. And the federal government's been flogging around with this, where should we set the threshold for resellers at, for years. I don't even remember what they settled back on for this year. But at one point they were talking about coming down to $500. If you made $500, you were going to get a 1099 and you were going to have to pay tax on your reselling. How much tax? Well, they've never actually instituted that $500. I think it's back up to $2,000 for this year. Say your goal for retirement is $1,200 a month. Well, $1,200 a month may very well push you over that reporting threshold. And if it is, then you may take a big tax bite may come out of your profits for reselling. And if that's true, then you're probably not going to reach your $1,200. Best case scenario, you're selling items that you're not having to source, so you don't have a buy-in price. You're under the tax threshold. You made a nice profit, and you didn't have to use promoted listings or send offers to buyers, and you didn't have any returns, another thing that cuts into those $20 profits. So it becomes a complicated issue, which of course is why that gentleman was trying to explain it in nice round numbers. But I think not mentioning at least the complete story of fees and taxes and returns skews the information you're imparting to your viewers. If you're trying to convince them to start in this gig, you don't want them to start and then be disappointed with the results, because they were surprised. They were blindsided by all these additional costs. Now here's another one, because I'm going through this. I'm not blindsided, but I'm going through it this week. One of my MacBook Pros failed, the old one I keep out on the workbench. So I'm in this situation now. I'd like to replace it, because now today I either have to carry out one of the other MacBooks from the house that Rose and I use for listing, for sending offers. I either have to carry it out to the workbench every day, risking dropping it, getting it wet if it's raining, or I have to invest in another one. So if I have to invest in another one, at what point do I transfer those fees I'm paying? I mean, I could drop $2,000 easy for this MacBook Pro, this replacement, and it's not even a brand new one. I'll be looking on eBay for one that's newer than the one that broke, but not brand new, because what I'll do is I'll take my oldest one from the house and put it on my shipping bench, and whatever I buy will become my new primary MacBook, especially now that I'm making YouTube videos. But the point is, I wouldn't buy that MacBook if I wasn't a reseller. I wouldn't need multiples. And if you're a retiree just starting in this game, you have to decide, am I going to sell from my phone? Am I going to sell from a laptop? Am I going to come to the decision that I need to buy one of each? They'll tell you start with what you have. It's good advice. But eventually, you might want another printer, another MacBook. You may need a larger cell phone plan, because now all of a sudden you're moving video images at a faster pace. You're uploading videos to your listings. You're adding 10, 12, 20 photos to your listings. You're moving more data. Those are overhead costs. And if you sold items for $20 to get your $1,200 bump in your retirement income, at what point do you take the cost of the equipment, right? The same is true of buildings. If I've got a garage and I normally park my car in it, I keep all my life's clutter in it, and I go out there occasionally and I do a project, like I run a table saw, I've got an electric cost associated with that garage. Well, now if I'm out there because I'm photographing and listing and I'm packing and shipping, I've raised my electric bill by the additional time that the lights are on and the printers are running and the laptop is charging out there. So at what point do I factor that cost into that $20 sale? My point is, eventually that $20 item or $21 item that he was using as an example, pretty soon you don't have to sell 3 a day. You've got to sell 5 or 6 a day in order to actually make that $1,200. And I think that's an important point that the gentleman missed, or at least didn't relate to his viewers. And yeah, I understand he's trying to keep the concept simple, by encouraging people to say, take something you own already, take a couple of pictures of it with your phone, print some label, ship it out, make money. That is an accurate, true, and worthwhile concept. But you gotta produce an awful lot more videos with an awful lot more information to get people to understand the whole process and the hidden fees involved. All right, I am going to take some photos of some saw blades today as an example, and I'll find that footage I shot while we were prepping for the auction, and we'll give you a few real-life examples of this concept the gentleman was trying to explain about how you can take things you don't need anymore and bump your retirement income. Because that's reselling in retirement. Because that's reselling in retirement. And it's what we do here at the lake. Thank you. I'm Brian, Cabin Fever. The market has become much more complicated. In some instances, the policies and procedures have become difficult. I got one the other day that said eBay modified my listing because Vero kept it from being offered overseas in the global market. It says they left the listing alone in the US market, but they altered it. Examples like that show that it's getting more complicated. And if you're going to use examples like I do, the examples need to do a better job of relating the point. Or you need to talk more about which parts of the examples relate to the point. And sometimes we're a little bit lazy in that respect, in that if we have an item physically in front of us or in our hand, we use that as the example, the show and tell. But sometimes stretching the object to fit the example, it doesn't work well because it falls short. But Dave's got a good message. He's got a good following. I think he needs to expand his message to his peeps. I sent Dave some feedback via the YouTube comment, a couple notes saying, a couple of your examples fell a little short of your point, and that you might want to get into this in a little greater depth if you're really trying to get a message out to people that this is doable. And it is doable. I agree with Dave completely. And I want to thank Dave, in fact, for putting the kernel of this thought into my head to make this video today, because it's all about dialogue and discussion. Dave made a comment, I sent some feedback. I make a comment. People, I hope, will send some feedback. That's how dialogue and discourse work. That's how we share opinions and views. You may have an entirely different opinion about what constitutes enough money for the effort to put up a listing, or enough money to pack an item. And there's my chipper again. Dave, in his video, in one of them, he reminds us that he's a 70-year-old retiree, which probably means a semi-fixed income. And he used to run a small business, and now that urge to continue the side hustle and make money is there. Well, my story is similar. I'm coming up on 70. I've had a small business since 97 or 98. I'm a retiree on a semi-fixed income who likes to side hustle. So I have if you're going to stick to brief descriptions, mine is nearly identical to Dave's. But we differ in our approaches and our opinions on different topics. And that's okay. Because if you surround yourself with only people who think and act like you, you'll become a two-dimensional character. It's the interface with people who are different than you, or who see things different, or who have different goals and ideas, that makes the community of resellers and content creators exciting. It reminds me of that playing with the AI the other day when I said I wanted an image of my postal carrier, or a postal carrier taking a package. And in one of the images, it was me and myself in the scene. Now, why the AI thought two versions of me was what I was looking for is beyond me. But it shows the point that if you only interact with people like you, you're only going to get the same information and answers that are already in your head, that you've already experienced. So I certainly encourage you to get out there and interact with different people. Even YouTube has a whole comment section for most videos. So interact. Somebody puts out some content and you have a slightly different opinion or a very different opinion, put out that opinion. Be courteous, be respectful, acknowledge the parts that are common ground, take a look at those parts that are different. In the difference is the interesting thing about YouTube and interaction with strangers and interaction with friends. If all your friends are just like you, you've got a very tiny view of life, of the world, of reselling, of retirement. I've been living with the same woman for 50 years. We certainly do not share the same view on all aspects of old age, of living, of life. She thinks I should share hers. I think there should be some common ground. Somewhere in there is an answer, I suppose. Anyway, Dave, thank you. Viewers, thank you. Anybody who takes a minute to comment, thank you as well. Another cup of coffee. Yeah, I just went over to the table and took those initial film clips of the saw blades. But I was thinking while I was over there about Dave's channel. And I follow Dave because I like his message. I think it's a good point he makes that, resellers who are retirees who all of a sudden have a lot of time on their hand and a fixed income really should consider online selling, whether it be Etsy or eBay or other platforms that are coming online all the time. eBay is the one we settled on years ago. I think my oldest accounts are coming up on 20 some years. You can hear the chipper being run down by the roadside. Familiar sound from the day we had the tree taken down. But I think the message to anybody starting in this game, retiree or not, is that it's become elevated to the point where it's not a simple process. Now, for anybody who thinks I'm calling out that other creator, content creator, I'm not. I like his channel. I like his message. I just think if you're trying to get people to start in this business, retirees or anyone else, you've got to provide more than just the kernel of information that stimulates the opportunity. You've got to be both accurate, which I try to be, and you've got to talk long enough about the subject to get more than just those basics over. I guess you can do that in multiple videos, and it's a good way to get viewers to come back. But if you only put out surface level videos, you're not really telling the whole truth or the whole story. I don't want to be a negative. I don't want it to be cautionary. I'm not. But over the years, this process of taking things and selling them online on platforms like eBay or Etsy or any other online platform that's come along has become more complicated. And you can no longer address it simply by saying, find an item, sell an item, make money. Well, that is the concept. But there are an awful lot of hurdles, educational, experience. Some parts of it have gotten easier. Google Lens, Google Image. And there's my chipper again. With the chipping crew out front, I have a feeling I'm going to end up having to do some splicing on this video when they engage that cutter head and rev up that engine. There you go. It is distracting if nothing else. But this is reselling in retirement. All right, it's been Brian, Cabin Fever, here at the lake. Go out and sell something.